Okay, so Mario Odyssey worlds have captured the true spirit of Mario and have innovated them to new heights, like the Metro Kingdom. But Mario games have always had something higher than skyscrapers. Yes, that's right, the Cloud Kingdom. A staple in Mario games since the beginning. Walking on clouds has been a Mario feature for eons. A couple decades, really, to be honest with you. In Mario Odyssey, though, we unfortunately only get a glimpse at the stratosphere with the Cloud Arena fight with Bowser. But small glimpse or not, let's analyze the situation. Is it even possible to walk on clouds? I mean, obviously it isn't, but how close can you get? This video has been sponsored by Alliance Heroes of the Spire, a game which combines some of the best elements from various classic RPGs together to create an awesome experience. With your basically never-ending hero combinations, you can take down crazy huge bosses, join massive guild battles, and even go against other players in real-time PvP. And just look at it. I love this art style. It has a lot of character. So, go down to the link in the description and click that link at the top to download the game and get 50,000 gold and 50 gems. Doing so also will support this channel, which will only help us solve even more Mario mysteries, Pokemon perplexities, and other things. Now back to Mario. You see it in many major forms of media. Games, comics, shoot, even some movies. But is it too far off in the magical fiction world to at all be factual? Unfortunately, and to be less clickbaity, no, you cannot walk on clouds. As it stands, humans are too heavy to be supported by a cloud. But why is that, and what if? That's why we're here today. How can Mario and friends walk and even run and jump on clouds? Clouds are made up of water vapor or ice crystals that have settled upon dust particles floating in the air. But if some animals can walk on water, why not walk on clouds? Well, one, the density of a cloud is much, much lower than water. We're talking tiny droplets of water spread across the air. These are particles of water small enough to land on dust. So it's not really able to provide any resistance at all. And depending on the height of the cloud, the water bits could be liquid or solid. Some clouds can even be colder than -30 degrees Celsius. Now, how do clouds form? Well, we should all know this from elementary school, but we'll go through a quick summary in case you've forgotten the mighty water cycle. So let's start super simple. So, the ocean is made of water. I know, it's insane, right? But get this, that water is pretty cold, right? But the upper layer is heated by the sun via thermal radiation. That water then slowly evaporates or turns into vapor. The water vapor is then lifted up by wind currents. This water vapor, while being moved, settles onto dust and other particles in the air. And once it's high enough in the sky, the water vapor has cooled significantly, so it condenses, the opposite of evaporation. The water droplets then become too heavy to be suspended in the air, and they fall to the ground normally in the form of rain. But if temperatures permit, sometimes it'll be snow, sleet, or hail. Sometimes right back into the sea, and sometimes elsewhere, only to start the water cycle once again. It's pretty simple stuff, and side note, in a very simplified way, if you want a more detailed explanation on fog, or ground clouds as I call it, you can check out this video on Xenoblade 2, all about the Cloud Sea. It's right here, one of these two. YouTube's always changing it. Actually, I just refuse to remember because... So how is it possible that water is even able to stay afloat in the sky? If clouds are just bits of water and ice with their densities much higher than air, how is it that they don't just sink or never even rise up? I mean, some clouds are an average 1.1 million pounds! That's insane! Well, it's due to a thing called colloidal suspension. A colloid is a mixture in which one substance of microscopically dispersed insoluble particles is suspended throughout another substance. Much like how milk is just liquefied butterfly globules dispersed within a water-based solution. Fun fact, colloids resist settling at the bottom. It's a good way of remembering if it's a colloid or a mixture. Two completely different substances, never truly able to mix, but they also never separate. Or at least, they would take an extremely long amount of time to separate. So that means water vapor is in a never-ending dance, where it will constantly move. Add that with the upwards air currents, you remember those from the water cycle? Well, they are one of those major reasons clouds float in the sky. The majority of a cloud's ability to float comes from the wind pushing it up higher and higher into the sky, only to finally be beaten by the water's weight when it condenses into liquid once again. So clouds aren't even really able to keep themselves afloat by themselves. It just goes to show you that the Earth is a strong force of nature to be able to lift 1.1 million pounds in that way. And even then, the clouds are too weak. So how do you expect to run on them? Now, the reason humans, well, most things, aren't able to walk on clouds is that, 1, we're too heavy. But we have come to this theory a few times. The Mushroom Kingdom may not be on Earth. We've seen Mario jump incredibly high, so who's to say that it's not some weird planet with very low gravity, thus meaning you'd have more buoyancy to keep things simple. Notably though, if we were light enough to walk on clouds, we wouldn't be able to walk at all. This brings us past the first problem, that if you were light enough, the water vapor could in theory provide enough resistance needed to walk or support a human amount of mass. Or a Mario amount of mass. But at that point, Mario would just float, as a cloud's resistance is almost or the same as the normal air's buoyant force. Imagine Mario just swimming through the air as he does in certain playthroughs of Super Mario 64. Instead of walking around on the top of a cloud like a frozen lake, you'd be swimming in the frozen lake, as your density would be that of air, or slightly higher than air. But hey, what if the cloud is made of ice crystals? Couldn't that provide more resistance? Yes and no. Ice crystals are of an irregular shape and therefore catch more force from the upward forces of the wind currents, but it's very negligible. But what if the cloud was somehow frozen solid, frozen in place, as the pixelated clouds of Mario World seem to look? The reason we can't walk on water or clouds is simple. The molecules are too loose. So if we were to somehow freeze them in place... No. Ice has a greater density than air. So freezing it in place, as in the cloud itself, would just cause it to become a chunk and fall. So still a no-go, unless it was magically suspended in the air as well, at which point Mario would still fall through it. We can kind of see Mario dealing with this in Mario Galaxy 2 with the Cloud Suit. This power-up allows Mario to step on and create cloud platforms. The suit appears to change some of Mario's clothing to just clouds. This could be a way of saying that Mario is now part cloud, or actually becomes clouds. After all, the other power-ups physically alter him into other things too, so this could very well be doing one as well. But even then, he still would only be able to swim on the platforms unless the suit makes him lighter than air, but still have the same gravitational effect like a heavy feather. Perhaps having ever-fluctuating weight that is automatically controlled, it is a magical world after all, would make this possible. And actually, if it isn't Earth, that does give us some more leeway. What if you had the perfect storm of variables? A low-gravity planet with a strong updraft, and perhaps some unique characteristics. We could start by possibly changing the molecular structure of the clouds. Heck, why does it have to be water? Could it be iron or even diamond clouds? New research, and by new I mean 2013, British scientists were able to observe a planet with molten iron clouds. How those stay afloat when normal water ones barely do, I'll never know. Though I still think water is our best and safest bet, as it's the ones we all know the best. To have your clouds cold enough that they freeze to near solidity, but still be up in the air, you'd need some sort of alien atmosphere to create the perfect conditions. Maybe an atmosphere like that of Uranus. Much like Earth, Uranus has layers of its atmosphere. And in the area right before the troposphere, the clouds are at their lowest pressure. Yet still at insanely cold temperatures, around -153 to -218 Celsius according to some sources, making it the coldest in the solar system. The clouds here would have to be frozen then. Frozen enough to walk on. But back to Mario, I'm sure we'd see him shivering his butt off in this case. He even gets cold in Shiveria, and I doubt it's that cold there. There has to be some other way to walk on clouds without them being frozen solid or just solid iron objects or anything. Well, hilariously, if his shoes were over a kilometer by a kilometer wide, he could, in theory, have enough resistance force to walk on a cloud, much like how snowshoes spread your weight out across the snow so you don't fall into the snow. I don't think his shoes are that big, though, the last time I checked. But hey, that would make it possible. And come to think of it, if clouds aren't even supposed to be able to support people, how are they supporting buildings and castles and all that Mario stuff? Well, funnily enough, it is actually more plausible that clouds are able to hold these huge things in the sky than Mario. I'm not saying Mario's fatter than a building, though that'd be hilarious. You see, if you take a biosphere and you make it large enough, and I'm talking huge, it could be very possible. And this is all because one dude, Buckminster Fuller, who invented the geodesic dome, observed that as you double the radius of the dome, the interior volume increases 8 times. After a certain point, the mass of the entrapped air becomes greater than that of the material of the dome itself. So if the air were to be heated, it would then displace the cooler air outside, and the dome could, in theory, lift off with as little as a 1 degree Fahrenheit temperature difference. And I'm talking huge again, like larger than a football stadium, and even more so if you had a castle inside. Could it be possible that the Mario Kingdom is just a very large biodome? Like what we see in the Wooded Kingdom? Noting that for later. Then there's always the idea that it's just a small fog layer surrounding the cloud, and that these clouds are actually just floating platforms. Mario games are full of floating platforms. These ones just happen to have fog machines on the inside. Or perhaps they're just so high in the sky that water started to condensate near it. This, to be honest, is the most likely case, meaning these clouds are all lies. Now the thumbnail makes sense. We've seen many things in the Mario universe that just don't listen to gravity, so it's entirely possible that these cloud blocks just ignore gravity when they float. And whatever theory you want to believe can be the right one for you. Even the old, it's just magic one. Do you have any other ideas or explanations as to why he can walk on water or clouds? Let me know down below in the comments, and why not check out this way old video I did years ago about how Luigi walks on water, because he actually does in Mario 64 DS. Good stuff. But all I know is I'm going to start looking for some shoes that are a kilometer by a kilometer wide. I'm off to Goodwill. Maybe they'll have some in my size. And remember, never stop using your noggin, even if sometimes you can't come to a solid conclusion. Because after all, it's just dumb theorization. That's all we're doing here. Doodles!